to not believe either, because belief is the acceptance that a claim is true. There's two different levels here. There is X is either X or not S. Is X is necessarily the claim. God or no God is necessarily the actual truth assessment. That's a valid dichotomy. But your belief about that situation is not limited to those two options. And because it's not limited...
I don't see another possible option.
Rejecting both claims.
Rejecting both claims is unsupported. Here.
Okay, but so then you would
No, stop. Stop, Josh. Gosh.
He's going to give you an example here.
All right.
I flipped the coin. There are only two options. Is it heads or tails?
You're asking me, or you're...
Do you believe that it's heads?
No.
Do you believe that it's tails?
No, but...
I rest my case.
I understand what you're saying, but then I wouldn't call myself an atheist.
Okay.
I would call myself agnostic.
The moment you say you do not accept that the God exists, that you do not accept that it's heads, you are an atheist. And whether or not you accept it's tails is irrelevant. Because
okay, but I think there's a flaw in the analogy. I really do, because the difference is that whether it's heads or tails, it has, like, you don't know that. In this case, when you're thinking about is there a God or not, if there's not a God, that there's an automatic way things have to be if there wasn't a God.
There's an automatic what?
It has to happen. With heads or tails, it doesn't matter what it is.
Okay, let me change this up because I dealt with this last night. In my hand, there's either a quarter that is heads up or there's something else.
Okay.
Tracy says that there's a quarter that's heads up and that this must necessarily be the case, and we'll just call her theist. I don't believe her, so I'm going to say I'm an atheist because I don't believe her claim.
But in this
and
case,
I haven't said a thing about what I might think is in that hand.
And in this case, you're right, but the analogy doesn't work because in this case, if it's not heads, it's not heads. It doesn't say anything. It could be anything else. In this case, in the other case, if there's not a God, that's making a statement of its own. Because then it's saying a whole bunch of things if there's no God. It's saying that you're making claims by saying that you don't believe in a God. You're making a whole lot of claims subtly, even if you're not stating them.
No, you're not.
No, okay. From what you're saying, when you say you're making a lot of claims subtly but without stating them, for what I think you mean, I'll actually go ahead and agree with you. But that's not the point. The default position is to not accept a claim until there is sufficient evidence. For the claim, God exists, I have not seen sufficient evidence to accept the claim, and therefore I reject it. That does not mean that I also accept the claim that there are no gods, because that's another claim that has to be supported by its own evidence. And whoever is making the claim has the burden of proof. If I were to come on the show and say there are no gods, and I'm trying to convince people of that, I have the burden of proof to demonstrate that. But fortunately, much like in a court of law where either the defendant is either guilty or innocent, you vote as a jury either guilty or not guilty. And it doesn't matter if you are just unconvinced of the person's guilt or if you actually think they're innocent, you are still in the not guilty camp because there is a default assumption. The default presumption is innocence until guilt is demonstrated. And with questions of existence, the default presumption is that it doesn't exist until existence is demonstrated.
Okay, so you're saying that by being an atheist, you're not making any claim at all, you're only rejecting a claim.
It's not necessary to make a claim.